This is what I fear as a Caro-Kann player. I've been playing the Caro-Kann for 9 years, and this is the one variation, the one opening that I simply cannot find equality against unless my opponent makes a mistake. So I'm going to show you how to get a small advantage against the Caro-Kann every time while keeping the option for your opponent to blunder and making it very easy for them to blunder. We're going to do that with the two knights against the Caro-Kann. So after e4, c6, we play the move knight c3, black's gonna go d5, and we go knight f3. Now the idea behind this opening is that we keep the option of moving the d-pawn to d3 or to d4, we keep things flexible, and we allow black to choose a variation. And I'm going to show you very critical lines, whatever black plays, and I'm going to show you the most aggressive way to play against those lines. The best way to learn an opening is to play it out against someone. Now, if you have a human willing to play against you, that's great. If you don't, you can try Nocti. I import all of my repertoires to Nocti and play them out against a human-like AI, which is going to try to trick me, and play the lines I want to practice. So what you can do is follow the link in the description. You will get the two knights repertoire for white, and you will be able to play Nocti in the opening, thus gaining experience and learning the easy way. The repertoire is also available in the shop on my Patreon page. You can purchase it for just $3 US if you follow the link in the description. And there are many other repertoires to choose from, including a full 1e4, full 1d4, full London system repertoire, full Caro-Kann for black, Sicilian for black, many others. You can purchase them separately, but you can also become a member, support the channel for just $3 US a month, and gain access to all of these and about 500 other posts included. Now let's go back to the Two Knights Caro-Kann. So black has two options here. One of them is bishop g4, the other one is de4. We're going to have a look at both. And we're going to focus on bishop g4 because that's what most people play and because that's the critical move and the way for black to try and equalize. Okay, before we get into bishop g4, which is what I have played in every single one of my games in the Caro-Kann when I played against the two knights, we're going to have a look at de4. Now de4 isn't as good for black as bishop g4, but it's also not as easy to punish as bishop g4, or not as easy to try and punish as bishop g4. This leads to a simpler position. Okay, so obviously we take knight e4. And now black has two moves. One of them is knight f6, going into a sort of Bronstein-Larsen Caro-Kann, and the other one is knight d7, going into a position very similar to the Karpov Caro-Kann. So let's have a look at knight f6 first. Now this, in my opinion, is the only variation where we're going to have a very slow positional game, and we have no way to avoid that. However, the lines are pretty simple, and white should always have a small, steady advantage. So we takes, and d4. And now, this pawn structure is good and bad at the same time. I've played it with black many times, and what I would advise you to do here with white and with black is to wait for the other side to castle. Okay, when I have black in this structure, I never castle kingside unless my opponent has castled too. Okay, so black plays bishop d6, that's normal, bishop d3. And now as white, I like castling kingside here. It is possible to play bishop e3 and queen d2 and castle queenside, but that's risky. And I think that's taking on an unnecessary amount of risk considering the safety of our position. Okay, so black castles. Now, I mean, if you go bishop e3, you could be in trouble. So let's just leave it at that. I'm giving you a repertoire for white, so I'm just recommending castling. I should point out that if I have black in this position, I'm going to castle too, because there are no good alternatives. And I'm ready against bishop e3. Okay, so both sides castle, and white goes bishop g4. We play h3. h3 is an important move because it defends h2, and there will be no trouble with queen c7 or f5, queen h4 later on. Okay, the bishop should not take on f3, obviously, so bishop h5. And now there are many ways to play. I like rook e1 and c3, or rook e1 and c4, excuse me. And after c4, white definitely has an edge. And after rook e8, we can exchange and go bishop e3. Now, as I said, this is the simplest position you're going to see within this repertoire. That's why I wanted to get it over with. It's a small advantage for white, and the plan from here, I think, well, you can choose between many plans. One of them is playing g4. And if you want to play a risky game, play g4 and queen c2, or queen c2 and g4, exchange those bishops. Now, you don't have to do that. You can also play bishop f5 at some point and try to claim a better diagonal. But this, as I said, is not critical, and you will very seldom face this. After d4, knight e4, black can also go for the Karpov. Now, again, all of these lines are in the repertoire you can find below, so you can follow the video along with the lines if it's going to make things easier. So this is basically the Karpov, and we go bishop c4. Since the pawn is not on d4, it makes no sense to play bishop d3 going for bishop d3 Karpov lines. So in this case, we haven't played d4 yet, we most likely will. Okay, knight gf6, knight e to g5. This already well, forces black to react. e6, and now queen e2. And this is very, very similar to what we do in the Karpov as white when we have a pawn on d4. Now there is incredible pressure on e6, and black simply must do something. So knight d5 blocks the pressure, put some pressure on the knight, so pinning this one. So d4 unpinning, or not pinning this knight, but making it immobile. Now we defend the knight on g5. White's going to go h6, we go knight e4. And white has many options here, among them bishop e7 and queen c7. Whatever they do, our plan is to castle kingside, play c3, and play against the bad bishop. So again, not a tactical variation, but a definite advantage to white, because we have a normal Karpov Caro-Kann without any tricky downsides. And if you've seen any of my games, you will know that the Karpov is my favorite variation in the classical Caro-Kann, and I believe that black stands fairly well. In this case, well, I will definitely take white. We can play bishop d3, we can play knight g3, all of our pieces are coming towards the king side, we can play rook e1. It's really, really difficult for white to develop this bishop without playing c5 or e5, of course. And while they're doing that, we're going to be focusing on the king side. Okay, so those are the sidelines. d4 isn't going to be a move you will face often. Most people are going to go bishop g4. And against this, we go h3, asking a question. So again, if you've seen any of my games, you will know that I play both playable moves in this position. Bishop takes f3, which is the best move, and bishop h5, which is slightly dubious, but more so because you could lose very quickly. Okay, I know bishop h5 well, and I have scored incredibly well with it, both in tournament games and in online games. But bishop f3 is the main move. So why is bishop h5 so tricky? Well, first of all, white can gain a tempo on the bishop. White can open up this diagonal with the simple ed. And white has access to the e5 square, putting pressure on c6 and putting pressure on the bishop that's going to be on g6. Why is that important? When the bishop is on g6 and the knight is on e5, and white has a pawn on g4, white's threatening h4, h5, trapping the bishop. So black is going to have to resort to playing f6. That's going to be the only move. Now, the first time I played this, I faced a low-rated opponent who's now my rating, so a good player. And I won in about 20 moves. So very, very tricky for black. I had black, excuse me. Very, very tricky for white to play if they don't know what they're doing. But very tricky for black to play even if they do know. Okay, e takes d5, we open up the diagonal. cd is the only move, and now bishop b5 check. Okay, the knight must block, there are no other moves. If you play knight d7, you lose on the spot to knight e5. So this is the first position in which black would just lose the game. Okay, so knight c6. And now we go g4. The bishop must head back, and now knight e5. And this is a double attack on the bishop and on the knight, but our idea is not to take the bishop on g6, of course, opening up the h-file for the rook, is to try and trap the bishop with h4, h5. Okay, first of all, black must defend the knight. This is all forced. If you play this against someone who knows what they're doing as black, you're gonna get this position in a second. Okay, rook c8 forced, d4, e6, black's trying to develop, and now h4. Now as black you have to be very careful. I have won more than 10 online games from this position because black played h5 or h6. Those are simply losing. Why? Because you will not be able to defend g6. Now this, I have lost a game in the Caro-Kann as black in this, with this pattern, not the same position though. I blundered into this and I had to recapture on g6 with the f-pawn, and that's incredibly losing. Let me show you why. Let's say h5. Knight g6, f g6. And now, I mean, we could go queen d3, but bishop d3 is more precise. Good luck defending the pawn. Say king f7, we take on h5, gh5, and rook g1, and you're not defending g6 anymore. Your king is completely naked. Our queen can come in. It's just losing. And if instead of that you play h6, it doesn't change things at all. I mean, we could always throw in bishop c6. Let's say we do bishop c6, takes, takes, takes. And now, I don't know, queen e2 is simple, queen d3 is simple, everything is simple. Let's say queen e2. Black is busted. The engine says plus 0.7, but for humans, playing this is almost impossible. So whenever black's forced to take on g6 with the f-pawn, that's an incredibly bad position. So what should black do? Black needs to play f6. And f6 gives the bishop a square, so if you play h5, you know, the bishop goes to f7. And if you take, the pawn on g6 isn't as hard to defend because our king is going to be on f7. Black's king is going to be on f7. And black's plan is bishop to b4, king f7, knight e7, defending the g6 square with the knight as well. So at this point, white must take the bishop. So takes, takes, queen d3, attacking the pawn with tempo, king f7 only move. And now you have options. You can play h5, you don't have to play h5. The main move is bishop takes c6. Okay, so bishop c6, rook c6, and bishop d2. That's the main way to play. And after bishop d4, we just go knight e2, we exchange, recapture with the queen, and play against the slightly worse structure for black. In my opinion, this isn't good enough. So what I like to do after king f7 is I like to play h5 straight away. And as black, this is the move I fear. So first of all, you must defend. You know, you have to take on h5. I'll show you a way you can lose very quickly. Knight g7 is a playable move, but after hg6, well, on king g8 there's rook h8. So let's say here, rook h8, king h8, queen h3, followed by queen h7 mate. So that doesn't work. If you move the king away, I take the rook, so you have to take knight g6. And now I go rook h8, play knight h8, bishop c6, rook c6, and bishop d2. Same variation, but we have traded rooks. This knight is offside, and our rook after castle's queenside will be able to infiltrate, not to mention the pawns that are moving forward. So knight g7 is definitely playable, but it seems incredibly ugly for black. The main move for black is gh, and after gh, only then knight g7. Now once again, we trade on c6, rook c6, and we go knight e2. In this case, I prefer knight e2 because, you know, the bishop isn't able to come to b4 yet. Knight f5, knight g3 is one of the moves. You can also go bishop d2. But after knight g3, we're threatening to take on f5. And black has many ways to play from here. What I do here as black is queen a5. After queen a5, bishop d2, queen b6. I give up, I attack the b2 pawn, and I think white should give it up. So takes, queen b2, and king e2 defending, I think this is a very promising position for white. I think black's king is slightly misplaced. So this is the absolute best black can do. And as black, I know about 20 moves of theory in this line. However, if your opponent doesn't, then you could win some quick games. Just have a look at this position. Black needs to be incredibly careful not to lose. And if they know everything, they are slightly worse. What more could you ask for? Okay, so back to h3. Now, the main move is bishop takes f3, queen f3, and e6. It is possible to play knight f6, but we aren't playing e5 against it, so the two lines will simply transpose. So e6. And I've had incredible success as black with this opening. My last game in the opening was a draw against GM David Alberto, multiple times Italian champion, 25-50, and I had a completely equal endgame with Drew. So I know this opening very well as black. However, there is one variation, the one I'm about to show you, that I have never even drawn against. Never in a tournament game. My last game was against Carlo Luciani in 2021 in Arco, and he beat me very convincingly. I'm going to show you that line. So, here's the upside of not having a pawn on d4. We can create a very solid center in which black cannot expand with d3. You may think, well, this bishop is slightly offside. It doesn't matter. Our plan is to castle queenside quickly and push our g-pawn. From here, there are two ways for black to play. Now, the main move is knight d7 or knight f6. They are going to transpose. But the one sideline which I have never chosen to play myself is bishop b4. After bishop b4, bishop d2, black obviously plays d4, knight b1, here, here. And the reason I think this is very poor for black is the move queen g3. Because now, after castles, we can develop normally, or we can play like crazy, which is what I think we should do. Bishop e2, knight d7, and h4, and good luck defending as white. I mean, you're never playing knight g6. The only square for that knight is c8 for the moment. We are going to push that pawn all the way to h6, and then we can start pushing the f-pawn and the g-pawn. This is a very, very natural attack. The engine says close to equal, but that doesn't matter. Black's going to have to play precisely for the next 10 moves. For example, let's say black, starts a queenside attack. h5. I don't know. I mean, h6 must be the only good move here. But, okay, let's say b5, they continue the attack. h6, g6. Okay. Could we go knight b6? We could. Could we just continue the attack? We could. We could also castle kingside, to be honest. We could also go a4 to prevent them from doing anything here. This is going to be a long-term advantage. So that's bishop b4. Again, all the lines are in the repertoire, so don't worry about that. If they go knight d7, which is the main move, our plan, as I said, is bishop d2 castles queenside. So bishop d2, not bishop e3, of course, to make sure we don't run into d4. Knight gf6, and now the point, g4. After g4, black cannot ignore what we are doing anymore. And black's king is still on e8, and in the Caro-Kann structure, with the pawns on c6 and d5, it's almost impossible to castle queenside without running into a lot of trouble. So let me just give you an example of what happens if black just says, okay, g4 does nothing, let me develop my bishop and castle. If bishop d6, we play g5. So now what? We have to go knight g8, h4, and this is already busted for black. Okay, so after bishop d2, knight gf6, g4, black must play h6 to prevent g5. However, this creates a hook, and this will forever be a target. Therefore now, If black ever castles kingside, it's immediately winning for black. That there is no analysis. Let me give you an example. So let's say we castle, and let's say they try to do the same thing, develop the bishop and castle. H4, sorry, bishop d6, h4, castles, and now literally white to play and win, g5. There's a target on h6, you cannot keep the position closed, everything's opening up. We have a bishop, rook, queen in the attack, and the game is over. So after g4, h6, once we castle, and this is why I hate this variation, and I've had this exact position on the board before as black, black needs to resort to very drastic measures and avoid normal developing moves in order to survive. The best move by far is queen b6. And the move queen b6 prepares ideas like knight e5 and d4, misplacing this knight and putting pressure on white's queen side. It's very hard to visualize that. So let's say, as white, we should continue the attack. Probably h4, knight e5, the queen must move, queen e2, d4, knight b1. It's already slightly uncomfortable for white. It's still slightly better for white, but this is what black should be doing. And here black should play bishop b4 to develop with tempo. Now we have tricks here. We can play f4. Of course, the pawn is immune. If knight g takes, we take on e5, and if knight e takes, we play e5, winning a knight, so that's just no good. So on f4, white is winning time. Bishop d2, knight d2, of course, activating the knight. Now the knight must save itself. The same pattern works. So knight g6, knight c4, tempo on the queen. Let's say queen c7, e5. Okay, knight d5, f5. Look at this. With best play from black, we reach a position that the engine says is plus 0.4 for a white. But if you gave me this position and asked me to guess the evaluation, I would give white a slightly higher advantage. Also, there are only a few moves that keep black in the game, of course, because the knight's hanging. If knight gf4, then queen f2. If ef5, then gf5, and this pawn is marching forward. This is going to be very difficult for black to defend. So this is what we're playing for. Now, the two positions on move, this is move 17, and then the position with bishop h5 on move, what was that, 20? Like this position. Those we can reach if black plays absolutely perfectly. And we're human, we don't play perfectly. Also, people don't know 20 moves of theory in the Two Knights Caro-Kann. So if you want to beat the Caro-Kann or get excellent chances to beat the Caro-Kann and you're an e4 player, I hope this repertoire helps. Once again, it's available in the description below. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think and stay tuned for more chess. Bye-bye.